Okay, so dash delay. Hello to everyone. We're gonna start the class now. So today, as most of you might know, today is the day that His Holiness the Dalai Lama is having his surgery, and now it's the time that he's going to start his surgery. And usually, at least in our Tibetan society, we tend to say that His Holiness Dalai Lama is an emanation of Avalokiteshvara, the Buddha of compassion. But even if we cannot conceive of him as an emanation of the Buddha of compassion, someone that holds the teachings of the Buddha not only holds them but practices them, and also someone that strives for world peace and is famous for this is something that we can perceive directly, and it's very obvious to see. So in our perception as ordinary beings, it appears to us that he has a sickness and he's treating now the sickness, he's having surgery to treat the sickness, but in reality it's not the way that it actually happens with him. So if we have a connection to His Holiness the Dalai Lama, if he's our spiritual master in a way, or even if he's not our spiritual teacher, if we have faith or trust in him in a Dharma sense, then it's very good for us to make prayers for him to recover from the sickness and for the treatment to be successful. So usually something we say in Tibetan society that when we recite mantras, for example, this mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, yes, is the mantra of the Buddha of compassion, of which His Holiness is said to be an emanation. And we say that if he's the master of this mantra, he's the owner of this mantra, we throw it back at him. There is no real benefit for him. But there is a benefit if us students, we can accumulate merits. If we accumulate merits, and there are more reasons for him to stay here on this earth, and this in turn benefits for him to have a successful surgery or to stay here for longer. So for this,
된다.
so for this accumulation of merits, for this purpose, we are going to meditate on bodhicitta and emptiness. Okay.
아니 야르무 지게 콜라 드빈 쇼파 약셰데 젠페지 삼바 감바 정시지 생 감바 동반이 감바 디 송여레 디데 가서 디게 차시지 레니 디서 고토와이나 라미가 송와노지 가서 과드 도멜라 니 가서레 베토 치임부요레 라미가 과이 도토와 디 쳐보요레스
His Holiness the Dalai Lama, many times, maybe you've heard before, that he says that the best offering for him is the offering of practice. And the best offering of practice among all offerings is the thought of benefiting others, of helping others, is the thought of bodhicitta, and it's also the thought of emptiness. So if we're able to offer him this practice, that is the best offering according to the Lama himself. So then we are doing something that's both extremely beneficial for ourselves, and we're also accomplishing the words of our spiritual master, if he's our spiritual master.
다트니 결혼소네 간디데요나 소소그 대산노라 셈바드멜 흘러나오지도 리포트마 지식 파목은 흘러나오지 되시.
So wherever you are right now, the way you're seated, you can stay like this. Just make sure that you're comfortable and that your body and especially your mind is relaxed right now.
다트니 지니 리폰 흘러지 생 흘러지 비니 그네다 아니 수제 탐지게 된다. 아니 라나면 바용답을 조비 상지 공부답을 쇼세 셈다. 아니야 기도 따로질라.
심신통지
수제 탐지게 된다. 상지 공부답을 쇼세 르다.
심신 치드.
수제 탐지게 치드라가 되다. 같더라서 수제 탐지게 치드 나 상지 공부답을 쇼세 르다.
And then on top of this body relaxation and this relaxed mind also, we bring to mind this thought of bodhicitta. For the purpose of all sentient beings, may I become a fully enlightened being.
그러지니 샘이에 대해서야 르다지 선제 탐지게 치드 나 상지 공부답을 쇼세 르지에 기증이 더 샘에 대해서야 그마까지서 냐도듯이 냐로지.
So as much as we can keep this mind, this thought and this feeling, this motivation of for the benefit of others, of all sentient beings, may I achieve the state of Buddhahood. Let's try to keep and feel this motivation in our hearts.
당가서 너지 미 정식이 생생한다 생기라는다 미 다대지만도 돈다지 바래다 딜라딜에 숨쉬게 치에다 사서 상지 공부 터버자 녀비고 르들라 생기 코로딜라 이나다티 기발라 녜라 녀지도 정지 몸부진로 거라면서 생기 몸 코르데 디레스.
So when we talk about bodhicitta, there are also other names that you might have heard, such as mind generation, the mind of enlightenment. They all refer to the same thing, only different names. And it's this thought of, for the benefit of all sentient beings, for the purpose of all sentient beings, may I attain the state of Buddhahood, this fully enlightened state. And as a cause for this mind, then there are many causes and conditions, such as great compassion, love, all of these, they need to be preceded. They need to go before the mind of enlightenment or mind generation. But the nature of this mind is this thought, for the benefit of all sentient beings, may I attain the state of Buddhahood.
당가서 가르치기를 선제기 된제고요래 선제기 된 원인 타티바도 쓰게 제도르지는 상지기 제도요라 디다 선제기 된 제비 제도 상지 타버자 냐마 디 생리용용도 가바이나 아니 생길라 아니 거버치바도 지바레스.
Because our our primary thought here with this is to accomplish the purpose of other sentient beings, to accomplish their welfare, their objectives. And who is capable of doing this is someone that has accomplished their own objectives, such as a Buddha or a fully enlightened being. So that's why we think, may I attain this state so that I can actually benefit others.
다 되네 가서 단다데 셈지지 되네 동반이 다음에 봐 동반이를 때 상도 동아이스.
So this is a Bodhicitta, but now we can also think about selflessness, or another word for this, emptiness.
다 지금 동반이 가서는 몸보 요리디나 단당 가서 데라 동보 소소공을 동반이 공고
So
요리.
usually there are many different ways of meditating on selflessness or emptiness, but now we're going to look at ourselves, at the I, so that we can meditate on this.
동보 소소라가 되니 제심시 제 탐제라가 되니 추 탐제라 동반이 가와레스.
First we meditate on ourselves, looking at ourselves. Then we look at other people to meditate on emptiness. Then we look at everything and we think of emptiness.
다 동봉 알아서 소소 아니 소소 아니 나 세와티 미도 다도 파 토비 파 따자마도 더롱기 문이 파쇼니 지 직접도 연기 직접 자와네 문도 르르 노아노지 지 자와네 문도 상네
다데?
나제 다제라 나라다 다세티 미도 다도 파 토비 파 따바서 요나 르르 농자마도 더롱기 문이 파쇼니 지 넘바 땡게지 농데 노아노지다 자와네 문도 나로라다 수수수도 티 자와네 문도 상네 텔라 상모톤라.
So this I of ours, this I, we see that it's only a name, it's only an imputation made by the mind. Apart from this appearance of the I, if we go to look for something, what is this I, where is this I? If we look for it, we cannot point at it, we cannot find anything that it's actually the I. And we think like this.
미다 소소 미도 다도 타니 토비 파타자마도 르르 노아노지 메파 노지 제심시 탕제용 아니 르르 노자마도 더롱이 모니 토바자와네 문도 사테 상모톤라.
So just like we are only a convention, we are only a word, only an appearance to our minds, and if we try to look for the I, we cannot find also all sentient beings. Everyone else is also like this. They're merely a convention, merely a word or an appearance.
다 선제 탐제 마세 추 탐제 다 안에 간이 추 간인데 지나요 미도 다도 다 타니라 때니 따바스 르레 농자마도 더롱기 모니 요바 자와니 메 사운드 티생데 용데 제치다라.
And not only sentient beings, but everything actually, every phenomena, they're only name, they're merely name, merely imputed by the mind. And from the side of the object, nothing exists. They don't exist from their own side.
당가서 동반에 가고 가서 같이 옛날 소소고 르르 농세를 때니 고고 쇼래 소소고 르르 노아테 가서 트용기 농데 요래 so tumbani go cause katina karzina so lolo non se la tene tani go res lolo kar no yore na ji maimba le yimba chi no de ro lo no kar na chode lolo no no je da chuni mendu sa te yong yong lolo no no je ka go res lolo no ta chapa ka go
when we are meditating on emptiness, we need to rely on what appears to our mind, on this appearance to our mind, and to our mind many different things appear, and many mistaken appearances are also in our minds. Things that are not appear as they are. Things that are appear as they are not. So we need to rely on these appearances when we are meditating on emptiness as well, and see that they don't exist the way they appear. Even though they appear like this, they don't exist like this.
디가나 땅아서 정식이 셀을 성지 동요래 동반년다 다지 비다부지도 좀 도마도는 가서 대지 로가 초섭제 요래 디가 가서 가르치 있는들이 고산조 언니 샤지 제와다 디 샤지 럼조 용화도 지 그치 가자베다 대토아가 가서 그 소소문이다 지 말아줘도 사람마다 와가 체디스.
So now we have thought a little bit about Bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment. We have also thought a little bit about emptiness. Even if we couldn't think in a proper way about emptiness, we turned our minds towards it. And this, in order for the surgery of His Holiness to be successful and for him to be able to stay longer in this world, this is our prayer for him, for this to be successful.
다들이 가서 용거 뭐 코로시반도나 다 가서는디 라바시로지 라바시니 디도니 다 전담만 도동에서 소몽부지 세요.
So now, going to the book that we're studying, we're in this chapter on training in wisdom. And before in previous classes, I have talked about different philosophical schools, different tenets.
당아서 네 다음에 봐도 동반이 제야도 찍바라다 다음에 비 동반이 공부요래. 이 공부에 지세가르래라나 아니 나서 그 뇨다 탐제데 다도 저반선비 단즈 그 공기 아니 뇨다 탐제데 정요래. 이때 나서 강을메 봐도 등을메 봐서거나
So now we're going to talk about selflessness or emptiness. These are the same thing, okay? Selflessness and emptiness. And these are things that we need to meditate on. And why do we need to meditate on selflessness and emptiness? Because every affliction, or you can also say negative emotion, they come from this grasping at self, so this self-grasping. And all of the problems in our lives, all of the sufferings in our lives, they come from these negative emotions, from these afflictions. So if we want to be free from problems, we need to think about selflessness or emptiness. That's the basic need in Buddhism for the meditation on selflessness. So all of us, except the ones among us that are Buddhas or Arahats, all of us, we have attachment and anger in our minds, attachment and hatred deep in our minds. And we also have to experience birth, aging, sickness, and death, all of us. And the root of all of this is said to be this self-grasping, or this grasping at the I.
아니 바데다위 뉴모큐노 말린지소라 딸리주의 lö인 통제티 나는데 여도 도지니 너저바나다는 거고 제소 다가르스나 뉴모 도자 공동아jer 되니 자뉴 트니뉴니셔 티네 소소르 키와 가와 나완 쳐와 등아지라 티디 쭈탕치데 직달레 되니 종요레스.
And for those who know Acharya Chandrakirtiya, an ancient Indian master, he said that when his mind sees that all delusions and faults arise from the view of the transitory collection, and he understands that the self is an object of that, the yogi negates the self. So basically, many hard words, but basically he's saying that all of these afflictions, negative emotions, such as attachment, anger, pride, jealousy, all of the 6 root afflictions for those that have studied, all the 20 secondary afflictions, they all come from this grasping at the I. And on top of and through these afflictions, then we have to be born with this body that's going to experience birth, aging, sickness, and death, and all the problems that follow these aggregates.
다 가르로는 스실로는 친이도 그래. 스파동 저와서니. 스파로는 크로알로래. 저와로는 용리 다점비 공부 타바라. 성기 마이미가 다점비 공부들 저와라.
And His Holiness says here that this ignorance, which is the conception of true existence, along with its latencies or imprints, is the root of all the detriments, he says here, to existence and peace, so all suffering.
그래서 다 안에 디성제다 말이 봐봐. 디다 던리고 소소고 교니 교도 뇨모 통제 종사가 다 단서 지난다 말이 빠지난다 댄서 지나 찍바래. 디 메파 제발라 도마는 다음에 비티 코나니. 디도 저도 무슨 거 디가 카테 따다가 시바지 기니 디 메파 저고요레스.
So selflessness here, where does it fit with this? So we have the self-grasping, which is the root of all these negative emotions and afflictions. And the mind that grasps or apprehends the object in exactly the opposite way of this mind of self-grasping, this is said to be the mind that grasps, that apprehends selflessness or emptiness.
디 종의 춘진은 디동 저동 생각와 다음에 또비 이시코나 마토 제메노다 다가르제나 나토고 교도 뇨모도 딩가 탕제가 자와데 단제 마리 파레스 단제 마리 파티 자메 동케게 자완데 메파정에 그 먹비로도 세레로나 아니 다음에 또비 싫었더레스 단제 돈저 동그라이게 다음에 또비 싫었도 먹베레스다 먹베라 장리니
Yeah, here His Holiness says that, here he says that which can be, so talking about this ignorance that conceives of true existence, which is the same here as the self-grasping, he says that it can be uprooted or destroyed by nothing other than the wisdom realizing selflessness, whose mode of apprehension is directly contrary to it. So it's exactly the opposite. So this is the main mapon. So this is the main, like the general. So before in previous classes we talked about bodyguard, right? So now we're talking about the general. So it's this, the one that has the power to vanquish the army of self-grasping, so to say. So before talking about Komabaiting, we talk about the bodyguards of the mind, and now this is, we can say it's the general. Because this self-grasping, so there is an army of enemies that we have to vanquish, such as the afflictions, negative emotions. Self-grasping is their main general. This is the main person. So, yes?
디노제 나서 자손요몽을 시도 혼자요마 저 문이도 마리파티 마페로와 디가 나서 마로 지소 자손요몽 과동 자손요몽은 나서는 줄 자, 팀만 상문이도 다전에 마페들와 디노제가 마리파티 녀로 사제들.
So all of these negative emotions such as attachment, anger, pride, jealousy, etc., they are like soldiers. They are being controlled by this general. He's the one that's actually telling them what to do and etc. So if we want to vanquish this army, we should vanquish this general. The soldiers, they don't have much choice about what they do.
당가서 네 다오가 마페세와라 용 나라솔 용지 마미 몽보여를 정식이 샘도 뉴지 쳔보도 제니도 한도도 다 지금 드바 감바 몽보여. 그래서 여래디 고소급기 도차도 공조도 뉴모리리 카테자마도 자와 타디 다오가 마페 모니가 마리파들 카테자도.
In our army to also vanquish all these negative emotions, we have many good soldiers. We have, for example, Bodhicitta, we have great compassion, we have love, we have the meditation on ugliness, we have impermanence, we have many different soldiers, but they cannot fight the general. They are only fighting different types of soldiers, such as attachment, anger, jealousy, pride, etc. So if we want to actually vanquish this army, if you want to win this war, then we need someone that can attack their main general.
아니 다오고 마페다 마리파리. 나라서가 아니 도 토조고 마페다 다메 토비 싫어들이. 다 다오고 마페 단제텔라 아니 나서고 마페 다메 토비 싫어가 카테자니. 대자메 토토나 아니 마페 다오고 마페 자메 토서나 오고 마미그네 셔두라.
So this is their general. Their general is the self-grasping, or this grasping at true existence. And our general, our main soldier here, so to say, our main general is this wisdom realizing selflessness or emptiness. So if we want to actually win the war, then we need to destroy their general. We need to destroy the self-grasping. Otherwise, if we don't destroy the general, then the army still survives. But if the general falls, then all of the soldiers, they don't have anything to do. They cannot fight anymore and the war is over.
Ini tengah dawa tabde jindawala ngaro sole mape tabde jigore. Tela dina sandu chebarche dame topi shirap dame pi topi tholam beso chago sindo. Te tengah so ke dawa tabde shi chembo inge ka maripate same tongge de seresna sandong ke dame topi sandu deres. Tela ngatsun beso chini kango shores.
So in order to win this battle, we need to have someone as strong as self-grasping, and that's why His Holiness here in the book, he says, therefore, one should strive in the practice of the exalted special insight, which is the means to understand the meaning of selflessness. So we need to strive in this practice of special insight in order to understand selflessness, so we can also have someone on our side that is as strong as self-grasping and perhaps even stronger.
다 드리가 담에 제야텔라 ngarosolani ngaroso dame bare 제동 dame bare 이나오 ngaso 도 마리파티가 ngaso 다트 요반스 잘했어 ngaroso dame bare티 마리파가 다트 요반스 에오디다 ngaso gel라 단다 dame 토비 싫어 요마리 메티 ngaso 또 베초제 강니 소소게 저 dame 토비 싫어 레오티 다 nga로 다트 잡반즈비 단자도 바카샤라 데디 nga로 다트 잡반즈비 단자도 가서나 디용기 차소뇽무티야 소마카샤레스.
But we are selflessness. We are selfless. Right now we are selfless. And their general, what is he saying? He's saying, oh, you are self-full. You have a self. He's grasping at this self, that is the object of negation. But now most of us, we don't have this wisdom that realizes that we are selfless. But once we have this, because we are indeed empty or selfless, then we can immediately win against this general or this enemy of self-grasping. If anyone has questions during the class, you can just ask anytime, okay? You don't need to wait. Yeah, if we can discuss, maybe it's better also. We don't need to wait. Because also we can forget the question maybe if we wait until the end.
다메 세야데 당가서 문이 시고하다 다메 세야데 저도 나야 다요다 나요 아니 다메 세 매직 다도 무슨 거요 레스토모.
So now we're talking about the selfless, right? What is the selfless? Usually there is a self, there is an I. So what do we talk about when we talk about selfless or no self?
다 다메 세야데 뜻이 카피요 레스키니 산지 잡된데 기요 주부 제트제동 송아티오 다메 도비 시로기 위치에도 송대요래 디다 넘버 성지비 용근우 간내지도 차셔지도 자바데 디레스 다디 아버시나 넘버 성지비 주시도 지바라.
So this is actually very hard to realize. It's also very hard to understand. It said that all of the 84,000 teachings of the Buddha, they were all taught just for us to understand what it means by selfless or selflessness. So from all of his teachings, this is the hardest one. This is the deepest one. This is the most profound.
아니 단나가서 여시 쳔보 제발라 가라송이래라나 아니 답이몰라 말해봐 띄우면 점아이지야 저래 가라송이래라나 토만 가서 다 매세야 그 매제가 다든 야버지 뭐시 마더나 아니 다음에 봐도 또 토요 말해라 이때 매제가 다든 뭐시 보여레스.
So something that Shantideva that wrote the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, he says that for us first to understand selfless, first we need to understand what is self. What are we talking about when we talk about self? Because if we don't understand what is self in this context, then applying the less at the end of the no self, we cannot negate anything if we don't know what we're talking about in the first place.
공사디 민디 냠발라 매직 공사디 시거든. 베나디 콤바티노 다시 제가 공사디 만디라나 동보 매직 다시 간디지 뭐 시거래마도 딩고 마시나디노 다시 엔돌라나 만디라 투 마레스. 디데 공사디 민디 냠발라 매직 공사 동보 시거요레스.
And later in Tibet there is a Lama very famous, maybe you know Lama Tsongkhapa. He said that for us to say that a person is not here, for example, if I'm going to say that Robert is not here, if I don't know who is Robert, then I'm not saying anything. But first I need to know who is Robert. I need to know this person if I'm ever going to think, oh, Robert is not here. Robert is not here. So we need to know what is the self that doesn't exist.
아니 멘디가 다트 마시니 나서 다음에 가라나 가지요 말아.
If we don't know exactly what we're talking about when we say that the self doesn't exist, then if we try to meditate on selflessness, then it has no meaning at all.
다 멘디가 다 뭐소지 되래요. 멘디가 다도 토모 신제신도 주신을 지야 말아. 토모 소소를 지고 이래서 소소모.
So first, when we're trying to understand what is the self that doesn't exist, we don't need to think about other people or other phenomena, other objects. We need to think about ourselves, the I.
가르치는데나 아니 비켜 소소를 거시래. 뇨모 소소가 뇨모 본 거시래서 마쟁이 뇨모 가서 본토요 말아. 소소가 뇨모 본아도 소소를 디체 거와라. 토모 소소사는 거지 않고 요래서.
Why? Because we are the one that needs happiness. We are the one that needs to abandon all of our faults and afflictions. We're not. So we need to think about ourselves first.
다 아니 토모 소소사는 거지로 다 소소 간인들도 소소 걸려 간이지 농도 지정지 제고 요래서.
So starting with ourselves, so then we can think, how does this I, how does myself appear to myself? How does the I appear to my mind?
다 소소를 간이지 농도 따오디 나라서 르르 나라서 간이지 농서 장지 제오디 소소지 뜨미지 어랑자 통게 시토기 통게 다지 뭐보도 주제를 뜨먹고 바로 와지 농데 요래서.
So when we investigate how does this I appear to our mind, it says that it appears as something that is not depending on other things, or something that can stand completely alone, that can exist by itself, something independent. It appears like this, it said.
아니 담에 거기 데려려 도모 소소라 나제 나지 나오 님블로지 지지니 나오 님블로데 간이드서 농도 따니 되니 나오 님블로데 노아노지 파카니 나오 님블로노 노아노지 모두 냐네 가와니 되니 도모 소소 되니 담에 가와 데려.
So when we're meditating on selflessness, it's important as the first step for us to bring to mind, how is this I that appears to myself, this independent I, this I that is it's able to stand alone, to stand by itself. Only when this appears to us, then we can meditate thinking, oh, the way that it appears, it doesn't exist. Only then we can use this second step.
다 아니 기타네 가서 nomba 정거 놀라시나 다메 파랑지메 파 뎀바메 파랑 신이메 파제 몽보송레스 다 아니 가자레오 다드 타바롱니 타바랑신도 몽보송레디나 좀 터티다 수수글려 노아 노제티 자와니요 말이지 테레스 기타네 르르 노아 노제도 나슨스 데그라 디메 파텔라 다메 파 르르 수수글려 공노나 노아 노제도 전이 아니 뇨다가 티글로레스 디네 나서 르르 노아 노제도 자와니요 말이 가고쇼레스 가게도 르르 노아도 자와
So
가고쇼레스.
usually in the Buddhist texts, there are many different expressions they use to talk about how this I appears to us. So you might have heard of an I that is inherently established. 그냥 그 승토나리 각 차대랑 있으니 두바당 Yeah, so established, so existence from its own side is one word. So established independently, also it's one word. Being able to stand alone, and he established from his own characteristics. So basically, there are many words. I'm trying to translate. He says them so fast because he's so used with these words. He just says them like in 3 seconds. But the main thing he said, yeah, he's saying basically that it doesn't matter so much because there are different names, but the meaning is just one. And the main thing is for us to realize that the way that it appears to myself, this I, it doesn't exist at all. The way that it appears to me doesn't exist. This is the main point of this. The way that it appears to me, it doesn't exist.
다 드니까 나오 녀빌러 나 제 노세트요 나저 진짜 가서 르르 노르메 염니 가오니 나선 통도 말했어 이나 나트라시 침벌레완도 요 강원시 침벌레완도 요 디와시 침벌레가 디가서 때 나나도 노세트 따당 노세트 그랬어.
And usually this appearance of this I, so this I that we're trying to negate, right? Usually it's a bit hidden in our continuum. When we are just here very relaxed, it's a bit hidden, it's hard to see. But when we fear, when we feel fear, when we have a strong fear, or when we are very happy, extremely happy and excited, or when something very bad happens to us, then it's easier for us to see how does this I appears at this moment, how does your I exist at this time. It's easier to realize.
아니 다 Tsering 한디노네 마 아니 기타네 다 동반이 중케가 기반노지 그 리바만다 몽보여래 디데 단단가들이 곰볼로 중그 아니 송그 지자지니 동반이 도트그 아니 노자지 지바이스.
So today, usually we say that we're going to talk about the reasonings that prove selflessness, right, or emptiness. And there are many different ancient masters that talked about this. There are many different types of reasonings, but today I'm going to talk specifically about the reasonings of Arya Nagarjuna. Yes.
Can I ask a question before we move on?
Yes, Angela Georgie. Yes.
When we meditate on emptiness, how do we avoid manufacturing an appearance of the I versus seeing the actual sort of innate I that we need to negate? Does that make sense?
Do you want to ask this in Tibetan, or you prefer me to translate?
I can try. Nga tso gomgyab tu dongbeniki gomgyab tu contest the dakte the hlingeki dakte contest juma gi hlingeki dakte nguzin chegyore. How's that?
그냥 저기
Yeah.
자기 다데 나저 동반이리 공개할 겁라 아니 저기 또 베사도 저기를 변한디 각차디 그냥 이거는 신앙 저기 이거는 다 그래 디 저기 자기 다디 저다 간다스 넘겨래 이거는 다 그래 있나요 그거는 저 또베 사도 저기래 변한딘다요래 이나요 이거는 저 저기
Well, how do we avoid creating an image of it? Versus, yeah.
린지지 다다 간이데 땡고 간이 세고레 랍데라. 야. 린지지 다.
More or less. Hingeki dakine gomkyap tu digola samlotang begapla di hingeki dak de tunchi sogi yore. Hingeki dak che di ngune picture.
린지게 다데 다다 간이 성고요레 랍데 이스레. 네.
감사히 미유 커린 거래 랭게기 따야나 랭게기 따기 던지
단스라 린지지 단스나 요 말했어. 필라오지레 린지지 단스야 계죠. 린지지 단스라 이지레스. 린지지 단스라나 베나가서 남에 또와라 린지지 단스게 제르메 받고 보셔레스. 그러나 린지지 단스게 제르메 받고 보셔레스.
나 공기 트라파 스페셜리레 베나가서기 미유 가서 담에 공개하나 가서기 미유 따레라 따레 이나용 다디 던지레 베나가 가서 문숭기 따그레스.
던지게 따그레
미그레 야나 던지 조그레. 던지 조그레 베디 따그데. 다티
던지게 또요 말에 무야기 또요 말레스. 말에 나디 야부지라 엔테마스도.
이나 콘 텐타 딜라선 페나간스는 빈 저기 다진데 가서 랑 두바레 아니 니 지기데 데츠만 죽두바레 이냥 가서 참아 신에 아니 던지 직속이래 이냥 오늘 가서 달라 딱이요 말이스 가서 다음에 배 공개하나 오늘 달라 미기요 말이스 던지 직속이래스 던지 샤기래스 아니 가서 오늘 다 동요 말이야
동요 말이야 나 던지
샤기래스 동그래 오늘
알레 데칼리 모젤라 단스 헤티라네 단 샤와텔라 단 던지 넘바 샤라마서 다 코로도 샤요 데칼리 징고제게라
그래 No, it's okay, right?
레베
I think so. Rere. Some of that.
그래도 나가서 디 나타게 셔데임바 디데 가서 나 오년바 간즈 밀로지오라 도모튼 거세 그레스 나세 간즈디 나 나탈 니요레스 나탈 롱원이 토핑 나치도 타니디오 빙 나치 니요레스 데 롱원이 토핑 나타고 다 니디요 말바 룩 노이치라 롱원이 토핑 나 노치도 타니디오 빙 나 노니요레 그러니까 농계가 간즈니 포티 나서는 지데네 다다 쳐치도요 말했어. 가르스나 가나야 롱원에 토핑 간즈 빌로도 가 도나야 롱원에 토핑 빌로도 좀데니 군진 지데네 간즈 빌로 히치데도 아니 롱원에 토반즈 빌 간즈 빌로 히치니보다 다다 가서냐는 지데네 쳐치도요 말했어. 지름 쉽게 송요레스.
Yeah, so Andrew's question was when we meditate on selflessness, how do we avoid creating a mere image? So we hear many explanations and then we create an image of this I, and we're not really identifying this I that we want to negate, this self. So he's saying here that Lama Tsongkhapa, he also said that for us usually, it's very important for us to actually identify this I. But for us, there are two different types of I. So there is an I that exists and an I that doesn't exist. The I that doesn't exist is this I that exists from its own side. So this independent I. That's what we're trying to negate. And the I that exists is the I that it's a mere name. So it's just a name, or the 단위도 옆에 있다.
단위도 옆에 난 좀 빌려주라.
So the I that exists is a convention or something merely imputed by the conceptual mind. So this I exists, but for us this is very mixed. We cannot see the difference. So when we try to negate the independent I, we negate everything. And when we try to say that the other one exists, then we say that everything exists. It's very hard for us to actually perceive the difference between these two I's.
다 안들이 소요래. 다 아니 지름 부제게 손도노 레신이 뭐 소노 나도 나랑시 뒤어봐. 나랑시 뒤어봐라나 나를 노노지 뒤어봐라다. 랑시 뒤어봐서 제바지 고 말했어. 나도 나랑시 뒤어봐서 나 코로 나로로 노노지 뒤어봐도 나니 보더. 되니 보도요. 저도 오만 뒤어봐도 이제 뒤대요래. 난 좀빌로도 나로 노한테 저번 좀빌로니 보도요. 뒤대요래. 다 아니 동반이 동계 관사들이 쳇पछि 터래디 파쇼 동반이 마토메 관사들 되니 쳇पछि 터에 말이라 이데 니가 동반이 그 니가 가샤 그래서 봐 나요까 나라지 잡아 가는지 나요까 난 롱은 잡아 좀 빌로 가와노지 만세 일로요까 소마 가샤 그래서 이러다.
So he says that this is a danger in the meditation of emptiness, because since for us this is like water and milk, he says this I that actually exists and this I that we're trying to negate, this independently existing I. When we try to negate one, then we negate everything and we fall to one extreme, or we fall to the other extreme of permanence. So this is the challenge for us to find this middle way between these two I's.
디디 동반이나 소노톤들라 나 만두 사가 디 소노치면나 젬바 스타르라라 나 라지기 잡아 가오르 나이 가샤르 오다 나 만두 사가 나트레이르랑도.
So for example, when we try to meditate on emptiness, it can come the thought for us that, oh, I don't exist. And then for some people, especially if they don't have a lot of merits, they can be very afraid. If they actually think like this, they can be very afraid and it can be harmful.
다 동반이 파 강이 거슬러 나동 나랑지 기어봐 가바노제 나요카니 지용이라 마치니 나동 나랑지 또 처마 백카니 동수 코나지 피는 농카노제 동수 코나지 일가 고요래라.
그래 얘기?
아니 나동 나랑지 기어봐 니가 바까 나요카나 마도 마도 리동보라 나자 나랑지 또 바까 타니 제벌치 도요 말래라. 데데 나동 나랑지 기어봐 니가 바까니 뻔 농카 동반노지 동수지 일을 쳐고요래라.
So then it appears a mirror image of like emptiness, or a mere empty image, so to say, like space, because we cannot distinguish this I that exists and this I that exists. Yeah, so this I that exists by its own nature, or this I that exists independently, we cannot distinguish them, and so when we try to meditate, it's merely an empty image, like space.
다 라지디요 파도 나 가오레라 나로 펜면도 사가 센더 레니 드니 티콜로 조조 마치나 첸달로 와도 티가 니강어 테이레.
So if you're not careful when we meditate like this, then we fall to the extreme of nihilism, and this is actually going to give us problems.
네 고몰로도 가르서 그래서 동반이나 따니는 싫어주는 포인트를 동반이는 서서지 맞지나 뭐 같이 풍그래서 강어 테이레라. 조조 마거나 동반이나 따니는 싫어주는 포인트에서.
This is something that Nagarjuna said, that if we're not careful when we meditate on emptiness and we fall to one of the extremes, like this extreme of nihilism, this is actually going to give us a lot of problems in life.
디디 동반이 거기서 니를 연치 men치 용을 놓줘야 붙지 냐뇽 제겔 그게 때나 마도 아니 동반이 그래서 마치나 백칼이
So
쇼요.
that's why it's very important when we have this aspiration to meditate on emptiness that we go to credible sources. We actually look at the texts of the ancient Indian masters, and we also find a teacher that actually has experience and that can teach us for us to really understand what it's talking about because of these dangers also.
아요 마페지 되지. 마페지 뿐나 드라우톱 첨부지 센도알라. 나쇼네 페 자디 고디 카메라메 여버지 제고요라.
Because when we want to vanquish a very powerful army with a very powerful general, if we just go to battle without preparing, without doing anything, we don't have much hope. So that's why we need to do all the preparations. We need to do everything right if you want to win this battle.
다 드라우톱 첨보데 카테 자왈라 소소 고디 야버지 마제나 소소 시니가 요라. 디노지 동반일로 송우 야버지 도알라 뭐니 그게 야포테 용리 lovju 야포체 투성 건서 예지 메시 만드바이나 아니 다오 톱심벌라 마제시 소소소소 마제 지바레스.
So if you want to go to war, if you want to go to battle against this very powerful general, against this very powerful army, if you don't prepare, then there is a chance that you go there and you die, right? So in the same way, we also need to prepare. If you want to do this, we also need to prepare, study correctly, rely on a reliable spiritual master, on a teacher, and then we can try to vanquish this general.
다 디지빙 가서 동반인들이요 다오 톱심벌들을 자자마지 다딘들아 다 그것도나 아니 인도 그 저와들라와 신지징아 자바도 정한 자만이 보디 다나 저로 동반이 또 메나 디니 수치도요 말했지 아니 디니 치와라 니버도 동반이 또 디니 전에 치고요 그랬어 하고자 난좀빌로 리티징아 자다고 그 리티징아로 되도 리티징아도 아니 나니 보들로 되셔서라 나도 라지 저반즘비 리티징아제도 난즈니 보도 수준이 치와라 동반이 마토는 치도요 말했지 디에데 다 저로 동반이 가마나 나도 나라지 기업 니가 가시나 봐.
이년 동반이 떠야 lá e ninguém pode
니가
chega
저니 저번 치고요 말 치기 여바 하고 그랬어. 치고요 말했어. 치토요 말. 치기 여바 하고 그래. 여바 하고. 근데 나서 내 로레텔 치 드리치는 저기 여바도 나서 하거라. 근데 나가 저시 말봐. 어떤 어제 동반이 말에 나도 난즈니 보티 난즈도 나 말에 나 다니도 여바 난즈빌로도 나라지 기토반즈비 난즈니 보티 소소 지디오바 소소 그놈을 내려고 시고 그래서 다 치나요 지디오바도 여드이나 치돌라나 토마레 마토디 니가 가샤 그래서
무슨도 봐요 그래서
니가서 지마르 동반이 토렌 다다 치도래서 디 용이 시고래로요 냐뉴그 시고래서 동반이 토네면서 시도해요 말아 냐뉴레 토해요 말아.
So actually this difference between this I that exists as a mere convention and this I that appears to be inherently established, we cannot make this distinction, we cannot see this distinction until we realize emptiness with direct perception. So before of this, we don't need to actually perceive the difference, we cannot perceive the difference, but we need to know that there is a difference. We need to be aware of this difference and know that it's possible to separate these two things.
그래서 딱 권유나 마시 야르마시 도톰분이 칼로마노 나만도 나간도 고모도 나미도 문도 간도 세들이 그전노도 디노제 그 단위 받지엔도 나가 니 말이 디딩가 문도 사금샤고 요래라서 토모 가기질라 토모 디나테 저소마지나 니가 요래.
So many times His Holiness the Dalai Lama in his teachings he tells people, hey, look at me, try to look for me. Am I my head? Am I my chest? Am I my arms? So you see, you cannot find me. Wherever you point, I'm not there. So there's no I. And he says that it's okay. In the beginning, we can meditate like this. We need to be careful eventually. But in the beginning, he says it's okay to meditate like this. Try to find the I and think, oh, there is no I.
다 동반인들이 지나가서 검이 커서 라운도 아니 제 신체 그 좀비 노 처음 바까. 봐. 동반이 거에서 처음 바까네. 동송코나 질러를 실지. 동반이 여자를 야로티 용리진디 또 정치기 생도 뉴지 또 솔로 소노 도이나 아니 지금 조치는 야부도 요래서 다 동반이 거기서 티존조고야 여자를 야 롱이 동반이 먹어서 솔로 소노 마토나 되니 제다제 통도 요래서
그래 인구 그런 것도
동반이 검라
아니 캐는민도
동반이 거에서 라니 바까 문도 문도세야 요마다 룩 농을 소소고 로 농을 지라 le nom la soso ka rangi soso rangi ki trapa ka sunje tsama pa ka
tadi yobe dayang ga kires.
oh chaso ka tanye to yobe da pa ka rangi ka jen ka noa ye ka sama ka ne tonson baji ji le sono ton tandi ji ne yo tonson ji le sono ton ka pi ka shet son ji tani ta tomba ni la solo maton yi ka solo 정식이 생도 뉴지다 아니 레전드 또 소소로 또 와이나 다 다시 송저세 된저요 레스.
And then, since in the beginning, when we meditate on emptiness, and we're trying to negate this self that doesn't exist, we also negate the self that does exist. And that's okay. When we're meditating, just a mere emptiness appears to our minds. When we go through these reasonings, just emptiness appears to our mind. And if we are beginners, also this I that exists, this mere convention or this mere name is also going to be negated. But when we are not meditating on emptiness, then it's important for us to think about bodhicitta, karma, to think about compassion, love, all of these other aspects of the path, and then they can balance ourselves so that we don't fall into this extreme of nihilism, of negating and denying everything.
다더니 저도 동반년 가서 나자 진다 가위나니 동보니 동반년 주지게 리바 딘제세 주라 딜라서노 돈에 공고요레스 딘제 야보 서로 도이나 딜라칼리 칼리 딘제 타리 도이나 아니 동반년 고알레 토요레스.
And then if we are meditating on selflessness, then we can rely on these reasonings, different reasonings that prove selflessness, such as the reasoning of dependent arising that you might have heard of. And the more we understand about dependent arising, this presentation has many levels of subtlety. So the more subtle it becomes, the more precise we can get in our understanding of emptiness, and more precise our meditation becomes as well. There are three levels of subtlety in this dependent arising.
Tenante mito to kiyo se ato jintun driwa se chura tege jela teni driwa topa to mile teni tawa kiyo pa te tende rapare ngasa soma hakwa tende rapare.
So one of a coarse, a superficial way of understanding this is something that even if we don't think so much, we can realize. For example, how does this plant come into existence? So we know that it has to depend on a cause. We know that it had a seed that was the cause for this. We know that for smoke to exist, we need fire. So all of this is very coarse, but we can understand how everything is, how things depend on other things, how effects depend on their causes. And going a little bit more subtle than this, a second level of dependent arising is related to things that possess parts, so collection of parts, and parts themselves. So everything that is a collection of parts depends on their parts to exist. This is a little bit more subtle than mere cause and effect.
제보 리라 때죠 리주 제보 때년에 때는 좀 와세죠 다 제바보 자와 자위 여선보디 아니 모지라 도바 타데 봐 어떠서 지기질로 펜세 때여 봐 대샤요레스
모지 도바
타데 제바보 자와 자위 여선보디 모지라 도바 타데레스.
And in this regard, Nagarjuna in his text, I forgot the name in English, Tsering. His main text, the main text on Nagarjuna, he says that he talks about the agent, the action, and the object. So, or you can see also the subject, the action, and the object of the action. And all of these, they are depending on one another to be posited like this.
I am read book.
Okay, I read book. Okay.
Read book na download. Tela, ne download papo, loja dam. Te losa sangdo jawa jepapo sangati kiton ngaso jepapo jawa jawi yo sangdo ngochi doba tatere ina damto ngani ngota dere dayo haboza
jepapo jawi yo
jawi yo sangdo ngochi res doba tatere jepapo jawa latene jagoro jawa jepapo latene koso ngochi ina yo jawi yo to jawa jepapo ni podo ngota dere 아보다.
자위여도
자위여도 데 다운들어.
뭐
타데레. 도바이 타데레. 아니 제바보도 자위여코로 도찬시오레
뭐지그래 송가딩 뭐지그래
제바보세야도 자와세도 자위여서보도 뭐지글라 그래서.
이나연 제바보는 자위여도 뭐 타데레.
말고 담동 아니 뭐 타데라. 자위여도 졸라나 답도 자지로.
알았어.
니 도로페는 이기 줄라라. 봐서 이기 주자 이기 때도 많이 보대 뭐 타데레디. 디 니가 자와 아니 자위여 임바디 나도 뭐지그래서. 자위여 임바디. 나 그거 제바보 임바디 그것도 뭐지그래서. 무슨 나 그것도 뭐지그래서 말다요. 나 그거 제바보 임바디 그것도 뭐지그래서.
Okay, so yeah, it gets a bit complicated in the terms here, sorry. So when we talk about the agent, action, and the object, right? In English, we use these words like the subject and the object and the verb, the action, right? So when we think about I read book, so the book here is the object of my action, of reading. Read is the action that I'm performing. And the I is the agent of the action. And when we look at them from the perspective of someone who is doing the action, so the agent, right, this word, agent, the action, and the object of the action, these three things, they are, in Buddhist philosophy, we use many times a term that's said ngojik, which means they are of the same nature. It basically means that they cannot be separated. They need to exist depending on one another. If you separate them, then the agent has no meaning, the object of the action has no meaning, the action has no meaning. So they're said to be same nature, but different isolates. Different isolates is also a very philosophical term, which means that they appear differently to the mind. So even though they are from the same nature, we cannot separate them like milk and water. But when we look at, okay, what is the object of the action is the book, and who is the agent? It's I. These two, they are different natures. We can see them as being separate. The book and the I, we can separate them. But the agent and the object of the action, we cannot separate as such. Otherwise, it makes no sense. We cannot call them agent or object of action or action.
다다나가서 제바보도 자와도 자위여라 ngojila doba tadeze shangdo. Tadi ranshiti mena zimbare ngojila doba tadeze jo toyo resi. Ka ranshiti yana ngojila doba tadeze jo toyo mares.
So when we talk about the agent, the action, and the object of action, if they are
ranshiti mena ta rola noa ta matrobaina.
If they are inherently non-existent, then we can posit them as being of the same nature, so not able to separate, and different isolates, appearing different to the mind. But if they are existent, inherently existent, then we cannot say that they are of the same nature and different isolates. It's a bit complicated.
제바보도 자와도 자유 타데니 조토요 말했어. 소마 지바 창조를.
생각은 너무 연기. 연기.
맞아요.
연기.
르라 나솔라 롱게 르라 노아노제 트로파이나.
If it exists exactly the way that it appears to our mind.
되니 제바보 자와 자위에서 타데 조토요 말했어.
So the action, the agent, and the object of the action, we cannot posit them as being different.
가르세나 제바보도 자와도 자위에서 제바보를 뜨니 자와 잡고.
Why is this? Because all of these three things, the agent, the action, the object of the action, they need to rely one on the other to exist.
자와라 뜨니 자위에 제바보 쓰자고 싶어요. 거기서 펜세 때돼요.
So they need to rely on one another to exist. That's why they are dependent arising.
어떤 리진이 다 가르잖아. 펜세 때니 줘봐마도 펜세 찍찍을 마템비 롱을 줘봐도 민도라데 가자들이.
So that's why they cannot be said to exist from their own side, which also exists independently, or they exist from their own side, because if there isn't the other one, then one doesn't exist. So they cannot be said to exist from its own side, this agent, this action, this object of the action. So this is to say that it doesn't exist the way that it appears to our mind, because they appear as existing this way.
pena pomechila sono to ashevaina pitasher pomochila pomechila
So if we think, for example, of a woman,
pena pomechila lolo non semanda mombolere arne chikungi amala resi chikungi pomola resi chikungi semo ni sister la chikungi kimela resi ta kusuku lolo no anoji yona ko chasodo ni musike dona amano gores kuroga palag nona amano gores
for
lolo no anoji
example,
yona
when we look at a woman, let's say a woman, there are people who is going to see this woman as mother. Some people are going to look at this woman and say daughter. Some people are going to look at this woman and say my wife or sister or friend, etc. And it appears in different ways to the minds of different people. And if these things actually existed from the side of this woman, then everyone that saw her should see this mother or daughter or wife, etc. It should be in the object if it was actually existent from the side of the object.
tapena ko pomotela niga pomore sia noge amaga nora kuroga amaga chingi pomola
For example, for the mother is going to...
lolo no anoji tusona ko tombo ne rongo ne pomore seres pomo ani jemba soma ko pomo imba no gore mazo nge amato nge chumata tandi no ayo mares
For the mother is going to appear to her when she sees that this woman, she's going to come to her mind immediately. Oh, daughter, it's my daughter. It's a daughter. But if it was actually a daughter from its own side, then right from the beginning, it's something that's called daughter, and everyone who looks at this daughter sees, oh, it's a daughter. But only the mother sees this as daughter.
tade pomochi de ama imbato pomo imbato chuma imbato semo imbachidi konsa susu le tone jaguda
So all of
kuroga
this.
amala teni ko pomore
So all of this.
le teni ko amare
So all of these things that the woman is, such as mother, daughter, sister, friend, wife, we can only posit them depending on other people, right? So depending on someone, then you can say, yeah, it's a mother. Depending on someone else, it's a daughter. Depending on someone else, it's a wife.
pena pomochi le trane pena kondo jine ko amare pomore lana chile teni amado pomoshe gudo mato ko tombone ko pomore amare la tomo mares
So for example, if I ask, oh, is she mother? Is she daughter? It doesn't make much sense. I have to think of other people. Oh yeah, relating to her, she's a mother. Relating to her, she's a daughter. But if I ask herself from her own side, is she mother? Is she a daughter? Then without relating to other people, we cannot say anything.
o tijiri tangaso machile shewaina somato lolo noatio penze tuni jige noa izani tundelar tende chala tapi tendelar ani te de ngaso machina ji no lolo no isi chile tuni no goda ko amaimba to yo korogo pule teni ko amaimba no godo mato tagazu ko amaimba ngozemba te de ko pomuimba to korogo pala da amala teni pomuimba no godo mato ko pomuimba ji no amdo te de ko lolo shawala chile tuni ko lolo shaboji tendelar res
So because all of these characteristics that someone has, for example, this woman has, because all of this needs to depend on other people. That's why we say that this is in the nature of dependent arising, because we need to depend on other people in order to posit herself as having these characteristics or this nature.
teni ichisen son de tranda yonani to
So maybe now I think that the time is over already. Do you have any questions maybe or no? Yes, one question.
During the teaching on tutors with Geshela Kesawango, we learned that we need to acquire merits to then be able to directly perceive emptiness. Because otherwise we would stuck on the level before. Why is that?
Otherwise we would be stuck in one level below.
Yeah, so why do we need to acquire this merit?
Geshe Kesawango con la tempani Diega Suko Nganso Tompani di Munsung Toya Chidu Nganso Nipu Sonam Sagore Nganso Sonam Shimpu Mena Sonam Masana and Nganso Tse Mawola Negire Nganso Tse Topola Lebimare Nganso Di Kagire Karichi. And why it is like this?
again
Yes. Karichi Nganso di Sonam Sagores. Yeah, so it's just like when we were talking about the analogy of this fighting this very powerful general. So it's similar, like we need to have a lot of power on our side as well. We need to be very prepared in order to engage in this battle.
디 카테 장게 그 마페터 마미텔라 로파도 접주 모모지메나 그 카테 잡던 말이지. 디레스.
Because these generals that we want to vanquish, so the ignorance, it's extremely powerful, and he also has many friends that are also extremely powerful. So unless we also have not only this wisdom, realizing selflessness, very powerful, but also very powerful allies, we cannot really go to war against all of these afflictions and this ignorance.
다음에 또 비시라도 다기는 알아봐 마페 노지레스. Teni 정식이 생도 뉴지 감바테 소노소르 티 마미텔라 라노는 세차 민다도 teni 담다 고다 티노지레스 또 소마가 또 야포지현나 아니 마미텔라 용 세차 야포도 민다 야포 코로마 피타지요이나 다우드 세토라 티노지 다음에 또 비시라도 용 조뉴지스도 정식이 생도 소노지 소야포요나 마르파카테 장교부자도 그래서
So here when we talk about the accumulation of merits, we're talking about these friends of our general, of the wisdom realizing selflessness, like Bodhicitta, great compassion. So when we go to war, just like a general needs weapons and needs to have many different things to fight an army, we also need to have all of this very strong in order to go to fight against the afflictions, the ignorance. It's clear now.
Yes.
Yeah.
결혼 마페 침버시대 안 되실.
Huh?
결혼 마페 침버시대 되실. 그럼 다음에 단색 카테 장게 마페 치셔도 결혼서실래.
Kiran Zusha. Yes.
결혼체실래. 되게 소나사고라니. 중국에서 그런 라 다음에 또 비시로 말에 단색 카테 장게 그 저 단스라. 이 카테 장게 그 마페 지제발라 소소그 질라니 소노지 소야버지 사고요. 그래서 디에데 소소그 질로 소노지 소야버지면은 마미 민다메사도 직발에니 다운즈는 라키마라.
Yeah, so it is. Yeah, if you want to win against your enemy, your most powerful enemy, you also accumulate merits, and otherwise it's going to be like going to war without weapons, without things to fight. That's how we see it.
나 이나라 단색 카테 장게 마페 모니터 같이 자르면 지나 소셜리스.
Mapondinga
미 야르무치 단색 카테 장게 그 마페 지라. 야르무치 카테 타다 짜요 지라. 이나 선데쇼리스.
Kirama.
미 녜라이다. 야르무치 인도지나 단색 카테 장게 그 마페 또 전부 지레스. 그 단색 카테 타다 짜대요라. 근데 나서도 다 알레 마페 마미 그러는 지요마. 디브나 다르데 그랬어. 대답 말로.
Yeah. It doesn't matter.
젬바.
Any other question?
란테사.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'll
just
try to speak English, mas
okay. Pode ser em português.
pode ser em português?
Pode.
Às vezes, quando eu medito, sem estar pensando em faculdade, eu tenho a impressão de que eu não existo. Parece que meu corpo não existe. Como se fosse uma coisa só, o espaço e eu. Isso é vacuidade.
Mas sem pensar em vacuidade, você diz. Você está
Sem
meditando.
pensar, só respirando.
So her question is, sometimes when I meditate, I'm not thinking about emptiness, but it appears that my I doesn't exist and my body also doesn't exist, just like space. So is this meditation on emptiness? Yes, okay. 그러니까 Tsering 공개중간 동반이 말인가 동반이 콜라스 동이 말이나요 공개할 것수 다디 민규 더블 차기래 매바 차기래 아니게 주보양 매바 차기래 넘카는 신 차기래 디 동반이기 공 차기래
도만이 마감이라라.
마공 라브레 근데 콜라스 동이 말이지네요 랑신기
디 도만이 공고 차기 말이라다. 도만이 강사가 상코니메니 그것을 매바 찬도한테 도만이 공고 치우 말이라.
No, so when we meditate and it appears that the I doesn't exist or the body doesn't exist, just this space, this is not meditation on emptiness.
Não.
도만이 감발라 토모초로 물롱원이 님이 도만이가 가자가이 모서 대 가자도 바카 디가 까비 까셔도 거고요. 그래서 이나다티 소소라티 초로틸라부터 하고래라. 아니 소소 검되어 있고 소소 만노아도 강가 매바 창도디 소소가 생을지 강을 내기도 디와레도 디와노 좁을래드나 대신은 내가 요만 동반이 좀 넣어요. 링들라라.
그래 인기
동반다나 코로 검되어 있고 코로 만노아도 그 매바 창도 열라라. 매바 창도 있고 주로 생라 지금 업장도 강원도 들이 용도도 용나 패센도 나 좁을 창도도 간이 창도들라.
Yeah, so first, when we meditate on emptiness, it's important at first to have this appearance of how do we perceive the I um, in this way that causes us problems, yes, and then to try to negate this. And he also has a question: when you have this experience of your body disappears, everything, do you feel relaxed? Is it something good, or do you feel a bit disturbed by this?
No, it's good.
네, 예쁘래.
Tene yapayana ko tata toni gambi choli yan rode yore la da.
That's
Ko ngel toni go sa salamato ni ko ti ko la ina ko nyoja gamjo ni ya loni onju churo nyuji do jongshi ji sem so gongo yore si. Ani nyoja ko so so mo wa do tene chalti na.
So if it's like
ye
this,
copy to ye je ka le wi sare.
if your mind is relaxed, then you're going in the direction of the meditation of emptiness. Then it's good. It's good. It's going to contribute to your meditation on emptiness. And then it's important when you're not in this absorption, in this concentration, it's important for you to meditate also on other aspects such as bodhicitta, karma, and impermanence, etc. And if you do this, if you also meditate on other things, then this experience that you have, it's going to help you to meditate on emptiness, even if it's not a fully qualified meditation on emptiness. Internet. Okay.
Jimba? Jimba?
Any other question, maybe?
Don't minute to. You know ye sare.
Yes.
I mean, if we have time, if all of us in this room would get at the same time completely enlightened, to become Buddhas, would we all share this? Would we all share the same mind? Would we all have the same mind, or is there a difference?
Nga tsu tsa tsoma du jikla nga tsu tsoma nyem du zangena ani nga tsu tsoma do shadin na la yebe kanza tsoma semgyu jik chagirebe semjik chagirebe na semambo yore semire semgyu jik chagirebe momboje
Se nga tsu nya de se chire to mo bore la.
rereji
Se mo bore ko se
nga tsu tsoma sangena
ala sanji na ye.
nga tsu tsoma danda du jikla sangena
Ani
semgyu jik chagirebe na mombo
sanji chi ya sanga tsu tsoma sanji de na sanji mo bo charo to sanji chi charo la. sanji mo charo ye.
semgyu jik chagire semgyu
Oh, yeah. Paje nga tsu sanji to sunje ni sengi ji chi la ro. Paje 생기 제도 지 창조를 미서서 지어다. 띵하시라 하면 거다. 상지 사대가 되지 약고 말이요. 서야 진도를 지방 시선 몸보지도 상지 사대 상지 강가로 심도 징러버지 맹게 나오지. 나 소소 더자가 농어 그 한다만다 농어지만 또 차소도 징게로지 직송도.
생기 tsoma semgyu jik
생기 징러버지 송도. 제도 선시에도 상지 그 기타대 요 말을 라. 되게 가시라 하면 거다. 상지 사대가 되는 하고.
Yeah, I don't know really when we talk about Buddhas. First, he did understand I was talking about us being Buddhas, and he said, yeah, we do have different minds, right? We have different minds right now, we can see that. And he said that usually it said that sentient beings and Buddhas, they share the same mental continuum. So our mind right now is going to become a Buddha. So the same continuum is going to become a Buddha. But there's also some people that say, some people that say that they all are like having the same mind. All these Buddhas are like having the same mind, and they only manifest different expressions or different emanations in accordance to their students or disciples. But I personally, I don't know how exactly what's the truth, how it is.
nga la me tri jo no ye shin sang ji la ji shin na ji mo zme ji sa bu lu yo ji shin na pe chi mo bu chi ge de ga re na lo da cha lo ko no ngo ni de ni ja ji ma to dong bo ne sang ji de ji pe na so da sa to ma da de ki ji de ji zhe do pe na jia min zhe ji ne yo de mo ji mo de yen ba ji zhe do nga so pe ba ge to ma da re de da cha to ba ko ro ji re de na da cha ko no ngo le de ni cha to sang ji do de no re se ya ji ma to ji dong ne cha so jing ge de de ni ji song an do 이나 다들 자동화야 다시 다시
생기 통제.
소지 통제
남의 직차기래.
간가다 징인 게 말은 농게 라지게 시바지라 이 징인 게 나오지 송도 나도 야부 심이라요.
Yes, I don't know very well, but there are some texts that say that they are like being the same. For example, Buddha Shakyamuni, we have seen many different pictures of him. Like the Chinese, they depict him in a different way, and he also has had many emanations. Different emanations to teach in different places, etc. So like this, there's also some texts it says that all of the Buddhas, They are like one, and they only emanate in different ways. But I really don't know. I really have no idea how it is. That's what he said. I have no idea how it is to be a Buddha.
지방에서 그냥 상기도 되겠다.
When we become a Buddhist, then we're gonna reply this. Then we're gonna know. Any other question?
So you were talking about the war, right? With the general and stuff, and so if we win that war and we kill the general, is that a way to Shambhala? Is that an access we can have to the higher dimension of consciousness? Like, where are we going after that? But it's still like when we come back to this body after having a realization, the duality still exists. It's reality, right? The human form.
Okay, so where do we go after we win against this general?
What kind of awareness we can have, because even if we come back to our body into dualistic realm which we are living in right now, of desire and a lot of other things which we have in this body, are we going to be how do I put this? The awareness of this duality will always be there, and the negative emotions will still be there, or would it already will be so subtle that it's not existing for us anymore?
Okay. Dili nga tsudan ta mag da ma pong ko ma bo shere. Shin dili nga tsudi ma pong di sena. Tobna. Ni nga sa sangi chagi de sena. Ani dongpo di nga tsu ko la jogire. Kong shinda ki ming jik labsa. Shinda di nga da gure nga ko mo sa. Dili nga tsudi pa shinda la jo. Kong da dongpo di nga tsu ko la jogire.
더 마페 세상을 나라.
세상에 아니 nga tsu ko la jogire. Ani nga tsu yang bena dua tsuyongna, zomlina tsuyongna, bena chukuna shi tsuyongna. Ani nga tsugi nyamnyong karina, bena nga tsu di duadri sena nga tsu namni gi nangwa, tato in yurepe bena kunzob tenpa dong, don tenpa ni, nyamdu nanggire, sani nga tsu chuku, nga tsu do zomlin di kongla tsuyongna. Ani nga tsu gi nyamong tato in yurepe, yana nyamong di tsu kyone yomare.
다시 다가 가서 그 너무 마페 마루파요라 디 세자나트니 소소 간도 롱요레 자소
So when we win against this ignorance,
롱 메파티 너무 마페 되긴 저대라 그래서 다가 가서 롱 메파티 야 신의 디노키 디노 드사 롱 메파티 너무 마페 마루파티 카데라 디더 본사데 가서 야 라이언도서나 마니 녀알란도서나 오 마열레 용서나 좀발레 셰알란도서나 소소롱체 차소 요레스.
So when we win against this general of ignorance, so we have no ignorance anymore, then actually we have independence to do whatever we want, to go wherever we want. Because what doesn't give us freedom right now, the reason we don't have freedom right now is because of this general, is because of this ignorance. So when we don't have this, then we can choose. You want to go to Shambhala, as you said, or to heaven, or to...
Shambhala 있어요.
Yeah, Shambhala. You can go to Shambhala. You can also go to the hell realms. You can go to wherever you want. You're allowed to go.
Shambhala 나 옆에 그래.
Shambhala
저거 저거 그래.
Yes.
You know, Shambhala 세야 들어와. 좀발에도 타니비 요래라 그러다.
Shambhala is close to our earth, to our world.
Yes.
이 샤발라 제야티 저도 때즈 녀자다 가서 영식바 영식 제와이나 샤발라 제야도 때즈 녀자에서 지라 티 집때 페트레 젬바지 사마레 집때 컨던 집때 지사레 또 마음발라 거바톤 이든 샤발라에 맞잖니 잠발에 무슨 멤버서 샤발라가 맞아그래 들리지 르기시야
Magyagire.
맞아그래
Shambhala napsala magyagire.
샤발라 와서 맞지 마음바 가서로 잠발에도 파 소마 지 추도 들리신지 키말랭게 들리고 원도 저 There are many stories about Shambhala. It's something that's very close to our world, and there are many stories that are very controversial also. There is a story that says that when in this world nobody accepts the Dharma anymore, or nobody, it just degenerates so much, all the people in this world, then there is a king in Shambhala right now that is going to wage war against us, and he's going to destroy. 지마 지지나
There is this
샤발라
story,
시 하고
yes.
말이야. 저분들 저거 단점발은 저거 또 지지나 샤발라 렌드 하고 말이야.
Ah, 그래.
단점발은 저거 뭐 보여라. 걔는 또 지저지도 지지나 샤발라 코스찬하고.
Maybe we can say there are many countries nowadays in the world. Maybe we can say Shambhala is the most powerful one. It's the richest one and most powerful one.
나서라 들으세요. 빙고네요. 디 가르세나 디서 정치쟁게 여라. 요지바스 그 시오데 나서 정거는 샤발라 그 나자 시바데도 코스 정치쟁에 대해서 라티오 사마레 카푸치 이사레.
There are many people I think nowadays that are investigating Shambhala and trying to discover Shambhala and looking at our texts and trying to find it, but I think they haven't been able to find anything. So
According to my experience, I think it exists in your heart, and
그래서 simulating, nimnonglatane, 그래서 simulating.
it's manifest in the same body of consciousness, but it opens up horizons and it start manifesting in your life.
그래서 simulating is such a mix 정말.
So I think it's a battle.
It's
It's a battle world.
어떤 이사레.
World of the
maybe it's like this, yes.
가르세나 샤발라도 유이 진세도 갈 거래로나 단당아서 야거 협조분에 버든지 봉쇄 주리.
그런 좀
야거로 카나다
그래서
보면
그런 거 공부.
고마 말마 딘지 보마레. 요 사차 젬바 주래. 야거티 고볼로도 소요 사차. 이따파티. 그 야거잖아.
He's asking if you're Indian. He's talking about the reasons that Shambhala exists, that there are some reasons, and then it's related to a place in South India where Nagarjuna lived. Yeah,
그자가래. 이따파티 디요레 사차 주르다나.
Yeah, so there is this place in South India.
그 사차 첨부 요래. gemba티 노 가만 고볼로도 소지 사차. 가서 저 빠르라 데레스. 버든지 봉쇄. 디노 tomba고 첨부 주요래. 이 이따파티 더 요래. 이따파티 하거라.
Do you know this place? Itapati. I don't know. It's where Nagarjuna used to stay.
디노는 아마 다자tom바티노 페니 아니 샤발라게 줄보르디 줄보세야들라 로모모송 요레스. 샤발라이 줄보. 샤발라이로.
Lomo Posungires.
샤발라게 줄보테 사자텔라 페 다자tom바게 디노라 샤발라이 줄보로 오모모노 요레스. 나도 띵고 오체세야지도.
Yeah, so it says so when Buddha Shakyamuni he went to this town in South India where also Nagarjuna used to stay. When he came there, he said that the king of Shambhala was there, and then he left many blessings, I think you can say, in this place. He left many things in this place. That's what he said.
그래서 디열에서 요래. 디나다.
So he said that there is Shambhala, but unless we investigate, if you try to find it, maybe it's a bit hard, I don't know.
지만 그 샤발라도 있어.
When you go to Shambhala later.
But the merits are going to be counted for the next life when we leave this body, like whatever merits that we are doing, realizations, whatever is happening to us, and we are back into the normal life after having some experiences of realizations, and we're back in and walking the same roads, and we are a different person altogether. But the merits are going to be counted for the next life, because sometimes I feel like it's not possible what we're trying to achieve in this body in this lifetime.
Okay, you mean merits and realizations, not just like winning against this ignorance or becoming a Buddha, just like whatever we're doing here right now, accumulating merits and realizations.
Yes.
If it goes to the next life.
If it goes to the next life, like that's what we're working for, or is it like in this life we start seeing results as well?
아니 인간처럼 다 가르치도 같이 얘기했구나. 인간처럼 다 쓰는 사나니 특히 미타가 더나 아니서 똑바로 저마서가 어서기 생기라 기나. 저기 기와 치마라 보기르베 저기르베 야나 저 연구가 듣고래 야나 저든 다 밑에 띵띵나나 ditsamma chegare lega chegare kansa giwa chimala dogi mare pauchade tsu dogi mare ikan thai
아니 가서 단다 손노 사야 부서야 부서는 초도 그렇게 지만 더 말해. 배나 가서 단다 젠가야 불리라. 젠가야 불리 때라 서보야 불리야 불로다나 토로 지마레 땡가는 지오성부 야부 지지로. 이나 오그마나 리카치 러도 사도서 공가이나 지번은 더 말어. 어디노지 단다 가서 소야부지 사 근데제바이나 되게 니부 신로 그거 기와치마로 소소로 디지털 강가 용어지 요래.
기와치마 카리 도기레스
같은 조세야다 가서
기와치마라 카리 도기레스
기와 단다 가서 소야부사 리카야부지 소소야부제바이나 기와 신화용 기와치마디 교로로 단다 가말리야 그 바창로 그 아니 기와치마로 교로로 디지 용어도 아니 소노야부 용어도 리포야부 용어도
예 스나기 초코랑 도기 말해
소노지 초코로다 드니 조이나 그게 니반로도 레이레스 코로도 메타바이 된 건가노라.
So the accumulation of merits that we have right now, for example, the virtuous actions that we do right now, they don't go to the next life. But just like, for example, when we plant something, like we have a field that we plant many things, and then these things grow, and then we have fruits, etc. So the seed is not there in the fruit, or it's not there in the flowers or the leaves. So it stayed here, but still we have results. We still experience effects of this accumulation of merits in the next lifetimes, such as a healthier body or whatever it is, depending on what we practice in this life. We still get imprints.
Or liberation, for example. Like being liberated from the wheel of life.
그래서 타바 톰나니 겨치마 타바 요래
타바토나?
타바 톰나니 겨치마 저기레스 타바니
알레 털바도 지었지만 그래라. 털바를 지었지만 너무 이렇게 자요 말해. 그건 라지요 말해. 서서 털바 타서야도 서서 그지. 털바 타서야도 타바도 파쇼지장 안나니 타서야더니요 말했어. 그러다.
Yeah, so liberation, if you have liberation, then there is no talk of it going to a next life or not. If you have liberation, you have it.
Okay.
Yes.
다 털바지기들은 서서 그지. 딱이 이제 단자 말이 봐도 녀목서 막 가서디 털 가르를 털으면 서서 단자 말이 봐도 솔 털서라. 다울리 털서라.
So here nirvana means, this liberation means that you don't have anymore this ignorance or this self-grasping. You don't have these afflictions anymore. So if you don't have them, you don't have them. It's always like this.
나서 털바 탐세 콘사트는 대장 발라.
And we call them arahants, the ones that
대장
have this
발기들은
nirvana.
자드 가르스는 서서 그지 단자 말이 봐도 녀목나서 보다 대장.
Yes.
디자메선 게들 대장 발로를 털바 탐세 콘사라. 털바도 콘사라.
And this arahant, maybe, I don't know if in Hindi you can understand the meaning of this. Arahant means in Tibetan is Ja Jongpa. Ja means the enemy. Jong means destroyed. So it's the one that has destroyed the enemy. If you have already destroyed the enemy, then it's destroyed.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
지와는 나용다라마도 좀 지지 봐라. 사도가 지요데. 여기 좀 있고. Thank you. 되지지나. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Peter.
Bye, Perry. Hello. Edith is here. So many people.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to
Good
see
to see you.
되지지.